man, we back. It's all TTV, man.
Gang.
If it's your first time here, definitely won't be your last. Make sure you kill, murder, and
smash
that subscribe button, man. And welcome back to RTTV, where we react to everything. Last video, man, we got introduced to the old ones, the Necrons, the Satans, and Eldars, and so on and so forth, and just got like more of the lineage that revolves around the 40k world. Now we're gonna get into the Eldars in themselves. We've seen that after that whole war broke out, they were the strongest ones left, and now we're gonna see the rise and fall of an empire. If you want to get this early, get to our Patreon. You get this and a lot more, man. All the link right down below. Let's get into the next video by Luentin09, man. Shout out to him with these lore videos. Eldar, Rise and Fall of an Empire. Warhammer 40k.
Let's go. That's on my PlayStation.
Yo, you read my mind, bro.
The Eldar, created by the Old Ones, who are the most knowledgeable beings in the universe, but were destroyed in a fanatical genocide by the Necrons and Satan. The Eldar stood victorious, the unlikely benefactors in a war of unimaginable proportions, and now found their race in complete dominion of the known universe. Now, just to mention again, as I did on the previous video, that the time we are dealing with here, as with much of the history in the 40k universe, is near speculation at best. After millions of years, facts and history are inclined to become cloudy.
Yes.
Yep.
The Eldar history is one steeped in mythology and legend, so it's fair to say that you could lend some artistic license around the events of this period. As the lore of 40k is also very complicated, we'll learn today about the ancient history of the Eldar up to the 41st millennium. I'll then cover their race of the current period in a separate video. The war in heaven was over, and the Eldar stood unopposed in the universe. In this time, we're speaking of the ancient Eldar. This is an important distinction to make between the modern Eldar of the 41st millennium. Ancient Eldar held a different mindset and outlook on their lives, and with good reason.
That makes sense. It's so far in the past.
The ancient Eldar had been crafted and refined by the old ones for one purpose alone, and that was to destroy their enemy with vast psychic ability. It is possible that the Eldar gods spoken of at this time were actually weapons created by the old ones for them to wield. This is the version that I subscribe to. As a result of their naturally powerful psychic ability from the old one's intelligent design, the Eldar are gifted with also unnaturally long lives by humanoid standards and intellects which would enable them to create some of the most precious and complex technological advances in the universe. The next events are
I wonder how long they actually live.
In essence, the Eldar gods, which it appears were initially immense psychic weapons created by the ancient
That looks
Eldar
like a God of War type of
They became living gods, such was their immense psychic energy and connection to the Eldar. The Eldar of the current day seem to have lost through the mists of time and their mythology this fact that the gods they worship were potentially created by themselves, albeit in their earliest, most ancient form,
That's
directly
insane.
or indirectly. Each of the gods was known to gift the Eldar a trait and be part of their development. Eldar mythology states that Azuran gave the Eldar wisdom so that they may know themselves. Isha gave the Eldar love so they may know one another. Vol gave the Eldar the artifice as a means to make their dreams become realities. Lilith gave the Eldar joy so they'd be happy in their lives. Kurnus gave them the ability to desire so that they would prosper. Muraheg gave the Eldar foresight so that they would know their place in the world. And lastly, Cain gave the Eldar anger so that they may have a means to defend their gifts.
That's interesting.
That's hard, bro.
Yeah. So it's like, and it's the craziest part about it, since time has been so like distant between then and now, the Eldar didn't even know that they're the ones that even made these gods to begin with. So it seems like they made these gods to give themselves these attributes to like kind of like be who they are. Like you got the anger, you got love, you got the ability to make your dreams and stuff. So that was cool.
And I feel like it was almost like a reflection on what they've experienced in the past with like even the Necrons. Like they hated the Necrons,
Yeah.
and we seen that the Necrons gave up their self to become immortal. You feel me? So I
Yeah.
feel like they created these not only these gods to help fight the Necrons at the time, but also to remind themselves of who they are as a species and as a people.
Who they were before the Necrons.
Dude.
It becomes even more complicated though. The Eldar in their legends refer to a time of war between their own gods as the War in Heaven. Now this is particularly confusing as you remember that the war between the Old Ones, Necron and Satan is also referred to as the War in Heaven.
Yeah.
Now it seems likely that these events occurred during a period of cataclysmic war across the universe and at the same time have caused this period to have a blurred point of reference. And when you consider this is all meant to have taken place some 60 million years ago, it seems very feasible that this would occur. The Eldar have focused more on their own gods in this time than the events between the Old Ones and Necron-Satan alliance, given that the Eldar lost respect and communication with the Old Ones during the war. This would make sense, and that they potentially could lose some information about the period through the vast timescale and various events that have befallen them. Instead, they're focusing on the mythological aspect and their own gods, which are arguably of much more importance to the collective Eldar consciousness. The legend of the Eldar gods is very much one of mythology, so I'll cover that in a smaller subsidiary video. What I will say is that there was a period of strife amongst the Eldar gods' pantheon. You'll hear that word a lot in reference to the Eldar gods. It simply refers to a council or circle. Think of the Greek gods of Olympus.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So they say that the pantheon is what, like the whole council of the Elder gods? Okay.
Now this dark period of bloodshed and war was not just among the gods, but also against the Eldar themselves. This not only divided the Eldar from their gods, ceasing their ability to guide them. This period was a disaster in many ways, but the whole series of events was caused by a misreading of foresight borne by one of the gods. Now this miscalculation, in my opinion, actually doomed not only the gods themselves, but also the entire Eldar race.
Damn!
I'll elaborate on all this in a future mythology video and what its implications were. Now, as I said before, the origin of the Eldar gods is one of speculation, but I believe that these were weapons gifted by the Old Ones, or at least guided in creating them for the Eldar, and were masses of incredible psychic power. But when eventually the Eldar were left without the influence of the Old Ones, who had by then been extinguished, these masses changed from mere weapons to sentient life forms, the gods of Eldar civilization.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
that these powers were first created to combat the Satan, gods powerful enough to devour stars themselves. It stands to reason that the psychic weapons created for or by the ancient Eldar could transition to powerful entities within the Eldar race, given their immense psychic force. Whilst we refer to them as weapons, it is not to say necessarily that they would have just been offensive. They could have been shielding, protective, or informative. And given the specific nature and description of each of the Eldar gods, I'm inclined to think that this is the case, and that these so-called weapons each had a function to bolster the Eldar in combating essentially what was an invincible army.
Yeah.
So just to recap, during the earliest days of the Eldar, the Old Ones had helped them to develop and craft their psychic powers, knowledge, and skills. Over time though, and because of the war in heaven, the Eldar were left more and more to themselves to develop and advance. When the Old Ones were destroyed, they were at the point where they left entirely to forge their own way forward in the universe. After the war in heaven, that was the war of unimaginable proportions. Once that finished, and the Eldar had defeated the Necrons, the Satan was shattered across the universe by the Necrons, who then retreated into their tomb worlds, leaving the Eldar as the most powerful force in the universe, with forces able to crush any who opposed them. An obvious comparison to this would be the Roman Empire in its advancement and strength over any other society at this time. Now, this situation obviously leaves the Eldar in an advantageous position in terms of societal advancement and growth. And grow they did, both in their technology, population, and most importantly, their collective.
But their downfall is probably like how far
Another
they've
problem
advanced
at
in
this
the
time for the
galaxy.
Eldar would be their gods, who were powerful psychic creatures and had up until now
Yeah,
aided.
that's the
and guided
the
the
biggest
Eldar.
elder they had was the
Some
elder
more
gods
powerful
right there.
ancient Eldar, like the earliest of their race, spoke to these gods in first-person terms and even fought against them. But all of this was to end. The gods were no longer entities that were able to assist and help shape the Eldar as they once had. Now they could only be contacted through spirit stones and help guide them in a much lesser way. So the Eldar would now enter a period of previously unequaled growth, a golden age in which they would spread their knowledge and culture wider than any that had gone
This is
before.
their golden age right
Such
here,
was their
yo.
own dominance that over millennia they filled themselves with a great arrogance, a sense that all other
I can see
races
the
were
comparison
below them,
to
and
the
all
Romans.
around them stood evidence of this, both in their technological success, their psychic powers, the beauty with which they inhabited new worlds far and wide. They were at the pinnacle of achievement, both technologically, culturally, and in the size of their empire. They not only lived long
Yeah, real
lives,
talk.
when they did die, their souls would return to the collective ether to be reborn into a new body, a psychic reincarnation.
But is it the
This
same
is-
them?
That's a good question, yo. Like through that whole process of them being reborn, are they gonna still remain that same person, or they just got a clean slate as a new soul?
I get what you're saying.
Well, as the same soul, but just a new body.
Yeah, it seems like they have like a real grasp on their psychic power, so I
Yeah.
think they're actually being reborn somehow.
Yeah, it seems though. It's like, and the thing is, if like it seems like that the elder gods, like which is what's gonna lead up to, is gonna see a premonition that they're gonna read into the wrong way, which is gonna cause like the downfall of the empire of the Eldar.
Enabled the Eldar to achieve a height of cultural technology that would nor could ever be equaled again.
Wow.
Over the vast periods of time involved here, literally millions of years, the Eldar reigned supreme. Their strength, pride, arrogance, and avarice grew. Their sensibility and self-control waned and became less and less. Their race was so advanced that they no longer needed to perform any physical or menial tasks, nor did they need to work to support their society. Their only causes were either self-betterment, the pursuit of knowledge, and most often of all, to indulge their desires, no matter how extreme.
Wow.
Damn.
Now,
Yeah,
whilst
you're
this
right.
was
They
all
reached
important,
2
we
level
must
higher
remember
of
the Eldar had
advancement.
far more powerful and overbearing emotions than humans, and this would lead them to indulging in ever more perverse ways to satisfy their desires, both through violence, cruelty, torture,
That's probably how we got
sex,
the pirates.
depravity.
The,
They became
orcs.
harder and
Nah, I
harder
remember it was
for these
those
extreme-
people that there was you'd rather kill yourself instead.
Yeah.
Oh, the Tyranids.
Yeah, because wasn't that branched off the elders?
I don't know. I'll tell
I
you
feel
the
like
truth.
they said
It's
something
possible.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, cause I was waiting to see like who made what and stuff like that, what
Yeah.
side they stay on.
fanatics dedicated to dark pleasures to satisfy their decadent desires. So their acts became more violent and more creative.
Yeah.
Soon, the streets
What the
were
hell?
literally running with blood, and the insane bloodlusting roar of the swathes of citizens could be heard throughout the Eldar Empire.
Sick.
Now, as you become desensitized to something over time, you have to push it further and
Yeah,
further
well,
to achieve
these are
any
those
enjoyment
people.
from it
Yeah.
all. And the Eldar in their lives, where they had literally nothing other to do at this time than pleasure addiction, was like a disease infecting the whole of the Eldar race. The Eldar slaughtered one another at the slightest whim and feasted on the corpses of their fellow kin.
Ew, they
Wow.
became
All
sick.
the while, the world burned around them. Cults dedicated to nightmarish depravity grew rapidly across the Eldar society. Whole lands fell.
They had
to
nothing else to
different
achieve,
aspects
bro.
of
Yeah.
powerful knowledge and sensual excesses. Billions upon billions of Eldar, numbers greater than you can possibly imagine, spread across worlds throughout the universe, all cascading towards the darkest epitome of
Wow.
emotional
They became
worship.
evil as hell. What the
Even
hell?
before this time, it had been prophesied that the Eldar would fall. The Old Ones warned the Eldar about it, but their predictions and warnings were forgotten, dismissed, and ignored over time.
Yeah.
However, it is not to say that all was a hopeless mess of suffering and exorbitant pleasures. Whilst many had slid into chasms of depravity, there were many who focused still on improvement, development, and the core tenets of the Eldar race. Discoveries by the Imperium of Man had found hints at just how far the Eldar had advanced with their technology. One of these ancient devices enabled the user to literally will anything they could imagine into existence, drawing on their psychic powers. If you could imagine legions of Eldar Guardians that would appear and be real and physical and have mass, you could build endless streams of fleets.
Well, that's
even
how
whole
strong they
cities.
were.
That's crazy.
Whatever your imagination could be, you could create it using this highly advanced device. But on discovery of this device, it was deemed unusable. It had been tainted by the forces of chaos, of darkness. The idea of using such a device of such devastating power that whilst it had been touched by chaos is an unthinkable one for the Imperium. It goes to show though just how far the Eldar had developed, and who knows what other advantages of similar genius they had created but have since lost. This period of wonder and decadence, however, could not last. Some saw it coming, although perhaps not quite understanding the gravity of what was to come. A group of Eldar known as Exodites concluded that the Eldar had grown to disgusting excess, and so left the homeworlds to live on fringe planets in a more sustainable, pure existence.
I feel them.
At this time, a great many more of the Eldar began to grow uneasy with the numbers and severity of the degradation of their society. Their seers, who had powerful precognition, warned that this dark path would lead surely to evil and suffering for the entire race. Yet more Eldar left the homeworlds of their empire, considering the remaining society unsalvageable and beyond help. They built great starships so massive
Which is why they lost all their homes.
Yeah.
These are referred to as craft worlds.
Okay.
And that's what we learned
Some
from
of the
before.
strongest Eldar stayed on the homeworlds to selflessly try and alter the path their race had taken, believing it to be not too late to save their society and beauty from whatever horrors would lay ahead. Surely the Eldar could not be destroyed. How could the Guardians of the Galaxy fall when they had the most advanced technology,
Ever.
the most knowledge and power?
That's so interesting, because and now we get more context of why they were nomadic and they were just traveling all over the place. Because before they said they had no homeworld. Now it's more the fact that they messed up so badly.
It's like they became so intelligent and so on their high horse that they felt it made it seem like they just felt like they could do anything at that point and there was no consequence to their actions. That's what it did.
Consequences, and there was like nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And then like once they got a taste of like this bad stuff, like they wanted to just satisfy that itch and they just became worse and worse and worse and worse until the end of their.
They came to their biological nature became so advanced that their yearn for pleasure became too advanced.
Yeah.
Like so heightened that they was just bugging out. That's crazy.
So you see, the ancient Eldar had drifted from guidance by the Old Ones too early. And despite the warnings from the Old Ones, the sense of what could happen was never truly instilled into them. This, combined with the fact that their own gods took over as the primary religion within the Eldar, meant they lost and ignored the truth of what they could face if they did not control their extremely powerful emotions. Remember that the Eldar were created for one purpose: to destroy the Necrons and Satan through the use of psychic power and warp manipulation.
Yep.
They all have a powerful link to the warp, this parallel dimension of malleable energy. Over millions upon millions of years of sliding towards depravity, the Eldar's psychic emanations began to create form. This was continually added to and strengthened as things became progressively worse in the Eldar Empire. Souls of departed Eldar cultists and sacrifices forming a massive ball of negative psychic energy.
What the hell?
This would cause such an imbalance within the warp dimension, it would actually create the immense psychic storms which humanity at this time would define as the Age of Strife. Without understanding it, they actually had a massive effect on other races at the time. The Eldar still had their webways to travel through the universe, but for any other races, interstellar travel and communication was rendered impossible by the high level of disturbance in the warp energy. This would last for millions of years and a hugely disruptive event for many other races. So, thanks for that, Eldar.
Yeah, they could even
But
travel like
despite
that because of
the selfless efforts of the strongest Eldar back on homeworld, and the cause for the endless emotional excesses to end, it barely abated. It became worse and worse, a downward spiral of disastrous proportions. Now, to any big society, this kind of horrific abuse would be a problem, but it was worse than could have been imagined for the Eldar. This mass of psychic energy that had been growing in the warp was now to reach a point of criticality. It would explode as it transformed inert psychic energy to a living consciousness of pure hate, suffering, and decadence.
Wow.
A reflection of the Eldar's millions of years of societal abuse and hedonism given nightmarish form.
What?
The psychic scream of the birth of Slaanesh was to be so powerful it would literally rip the fabric of the universe in two. It tore the souls of the Eldar within 1,000 light years, slaughtering the greatest number of Eldar in an instant. No one knows
Wow.
the figures involved in this loss, but it could be no less than trillions of lives, not to mention all of their homeworlds, and some of the craftworlds who had not even travelled far enough were annihilated in an instant.
Damn.
Wow.
Their research and technology destroyed, the wonders in their culture, which had stood for millennia, obliterated. The Eldar gods, who despite being separated from the Eldar still cared and protected their followers, tried to combat and defeat Slaanesh, but all were slain or shattered, apart from just a couple of their gods who managed to escape the horror.
Wow, that's
The Eldar
nuts.
had truly lost everything in an instant. Only those who sheltered at distance in the wraithbone hulls of the craftworlds and exodite planets were spared, leaving a mere fragment of the Eldar behind. The Eldar race did not just fall at this time, it was nearly wiped from existence. The only other survivors were ironically the Dark Eldar. I'll make mention of this
course.
specific Eldar group another time, but the Dark Eldar were essentially a cult or a mix of cults who worshipped the most purely depraved side of the Eldar. They were part of the many who orchestrated the fall of the Eldar. They had created a home for themselves within the Eldar webway, and this protected them from the immense shockwave as Slaanesh came
Oh,
to be.
they were prepared for that
But this
impact.
was only the beginning. The horror of what had occurred would not only haunt the Eldar for many millennia, but it would also unleash unseen nightmares into the reality of the world. Until this time, dark forces from within the warp could only transition to reality by channeling themselves through a psyker or being summoned as so. With the warp and reality torn apart, these two now merged, and horrors of the warp could easily
So
bleed
Slaanesh
into
is
the
like the
universe.
Big Bang almost, right? Like there was so much negativity and hate, it would cause a massive explosion and which destroyed like
Trillions and trillions
of
of
Eldars.
Eldars.
But then it created like almost like a new galaxy. Is that am I getting it right? Or
No,
what?
basically now it's all intertwined now. So like the warped world and now the regular universe is now one. So all there was different chaos. Cause we seen before that there was chaos gods and different horrors that's within the warp world. They're saying that before the only way that they was able to get into the universe was through other psychers or through being summoned.
Yeah.
Now, what up?
All
We
is
here.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Corrupting, destroying, and ravaging. It is also said that the Eldar homeworlds still exist, lost within the realm of the warp and chaos, suffering a never-ending nightmare of their own making of pure demonic suffering for any Eldar who remain there. The tear in the warp dimension of reality would be known from this point onward as the Eye of Terror, and gave birth to the gateway for the myriad of forces known as Chaos. This devastating event had a wide-reaching effect on all races in the galaxy and was far from over in the history of the universe of 40k. Since this time of darkness, which the Eldar refer to as the Fall, it is spoken of understandably with sadness and humiliation. The Eldar are now broken and a scattered race, lacking a sense of unity and coordinated objective. The Exolite world saw all of these events confirm that their choice to abandon the ways of technology and hedonism was the right one, and consequently they've slipped into a more primitive technological level of subsistence and just existence.
Wow.
Happy
They came
in
a long
its
way.
simplicity and with no interest for the power that caused their destruction. The survivors of the Eldar homeworlds who had foresight enough to abandon their planets now drift through the stars in colossal nomad fleets. and the more strict and organised of these are the craft worlds. Created prior to the fall with the mission to preserve the true Eldar way of life, they're loaded with life forms, culture from their planet in both religion, biology, technology, and politics. Each of these craft worlds remains independent of the others, and they have no commitments to one another.
Oh, they're all
They
separate.
often ally one another in times of need, but their society is very much shattered from the days of the ancient Eldar and is just a shadow of its former glory. The process of reincarnation that the Eldar once revered is also no longer possible, as they discovered after the fall that Slaanesh would snatch and devour their souls at the point of death. This prospect brings utter terror to the Eldar, but once they did not fear death, as they knew their spirit would be reincarnated and their life's knowledge preserved.
So Slaanesh is
now it
actually
could be
an
ripped and
entity
consumed by the chaos
that was formed from
Slaanesh.
that
To
explosion.
counter this horror, the Eldar developed spirit stones. These are the red orbs you'll see adorning Eldar armor, vehicles, and weapons. The purpose is to absorb and store an Eldar's soul at the point of death, so that it can be then placed into a craft world infinity circuit as a life source of information for the Eldar, and to save that soul from Slaanesh, ever watching, always desiring. Now the Eldar have been greatly changed by the
information
fall,
ain't never dying.
and their society is still reeling from the sheer scale of the horror it created for itself. And all the while Slaanesh is constantly stalking. They can never escape, and that's what they fear more than anything. But Eldar prophecies state, though, that one day their gods, some of whom were consumed and destroyed by Slaanesh, others were lost long ago during the Eldar War in heaven. It is said that they will one day rise again as the saviours of the Eldar, to see them take their place as the rulers of the galaxy once again. Whilst this might seem a hope of a doomed race, it's not out of the realms of possibility. The Eldar are one of the most powerful races when it comes to psychic powers, and the Eldar gods, as you remember, were weapons designed by the Old Ones to combat the Satan. So it's not somehow out of the realm of possibility, there's some truth to this. The Eldar gods could recombine, resurrect from the depths of the warp. If it were to happen, then perhaps this period of ruin among the Eldar would be viewed more as penance than actually as ruin. Now the Eldar had been shattered by these events and were left significantly weakened. To date, their fall had the largest impact, obviously, on themselves. But it's worth to keep in mind that the Eldar were the ones who originally caused the Necrons to retreat into their tomb worlds. They had since then grown in strength many times over. But since the fall, all of this was lost, leaving them significantly weaker and more scattered than ever at the end of the war in heaven.
They took a
This could still have far-reaching consequences as the universe of the 41st millennium faces new threats from the awakening Necron and the invasive Tyranid hives. The Eldar story is one which is far more significant than sometimes is given credit, and whilst many other empires are stronger than the Eldar in the current time, none are even close to what the Eldar had achieved with their own.
They reached the pinnacle.
The other younger and less powerful races such as mankind, Tau, Orcs, facing some of the most nightmarish forces in the universe is a sobering prospect. The Eldar, if their prophecies of godlike resurrection and intervention prove accurate, could be the last true hope for the universe. We'll be moving on from the Eldar now to look at mankind and the Imperium and their place in the universe. But we will revisit the Eldar in the future videos to look at their society, their weapons, their gods, and much more. So guys, please leave your thoughts below, and as always, please support me by rating the video, commenting, and checking out my previous content. I need as much support as possible with this series, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time when we learn more about the future of human history.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Luentin09 for another banger right there, man.
Wow, that's scary. Like, imagine being so ahead of time, like ahead of everybody, that you just get bored and then you just become your own downfall. Like, that's so crazy, bro.
That's become mad.
Yeah. That's a greatest crash out of all time.
That's the dumbest crash out of all time.
Yeah, they really, as a
It's
species.
like, yo, just go chill out. Just go relax.
Like, just
Like,
chill.
One week.
Like, enjoy the fruits of your labor.
I guess as a species, they couldn't. Like,
They went mad.
yeah, like, the thing is like, it's how long it is, too, yo. Because
Yeah.
you gotta think about, like, there was a time where they were doing that. Where they was just chilling, enjoying the fruits of their labor. They was just expanding, going all across the galaxy because they was able to use the warp and travel all across the place. But then it's like time kept going. Bro, they made a device that was able to create anything. I want a Lexus. I want a spaceship, whatever.
Yeah.
I want an army of 40,000 people.
Bruh.
It'll be right there. And then all that just made them get so high and craving, gluttony, and all these things that their vices consumed them.
That's what's so dope about it, because it feels that the telling of the Eldars, they basically achieve anything you can achieve.
Yeah.
They did it because this story was a course of millions of years.
Yeah.
So it's like they achieved whatever. Just like you said, it was a device, like almost like the Midas touch, right? You
Yeah.
turn anything to gold. I could turn anything to anything I want.
Yeah.
Like how do you please somebody, or how do you even become happy? You feel me? Like what do you do to be happy? And then they said they were emotional beings. So imagine when
Highly.
you get one sense of pleasure, and what if that thing is like something completely bad?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're gonna keep doing it, and over a course of millions of years, it turns into like the darkest thing. And they end up like ruining themselves.
Yeah, they couldn't satiate their hunger for just
Pleasure.
destruction. Yeah, destruction and pleasure at that point. So they kept trying to chase that new high feeling of that. And yo, bruh, at that power and strength level, I could only what the hell?
And the craziest thing is that like those people that became, or those Eldars that became the darkest versions of Eldars, are the ones that actually survived after what did they call it? After the explosion.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's because they were the truest version of themselves, as opposed to like the Eldar that were rejecting who they were becoming. If that makes sense.
Luckily, there's still awesome Eldars that was able to retain or try to retain like the ways of the ancient old ones and everything like that.
Good.
Yeah, cause like towards the end of the video, it's interesting. He said that they're the last hope for the universe. So they kind of have to play the same role that they played in the past with that war of the WARHAMMER when they was supporting the old ones and stuff like that. So hopefully, they have the ability of getting their elder gods to resurrect and be able to help them out with this crazy ass war that's going on right now. Cause what was the name of the thing? Sonesh.
Yeah,
Sonesh is on their ass, bro. So dope video right now, once again by Luentin09, man. So after this one, we're gonna be checking out more when it comes to the Mankind Imperium, and probably gonna dive into like the creation of Astartes with the Space Marines, yo. Stay tuned with us, man. We got more lore videos to come. See you, boy Patricrt.
It's the Maniac.
It's your boy Robcityrt.
What up, it's your boy DC?
It's your boy Wells.
And that settles it at
The Round Table.